just in the construction phase, if you want to call it that. So we have some really exciting Q&As for this, and we're going to kick it off with one of our very special guests. I'm very happy to have him back to the show. It's been quite a while since we've had him here before. I'm also going to bring up a very, very knowledgeable man by the name of Travis Langley, who's going to moderate this Q&A. He is a doctor, so don't question his judgment. And the way that this is going to work, for those of you, because I know we have a lot of new faces here at the show, Travis is going to, we're going to talk, he's going to talk a little bit with Kevin and kind of, get some background story on him. And then we're going to take some questions from you guys in the audience. And I believe we have a microphone back down here in the center somewhere. Where is it? Right over here? Right over here. Okay. So if any of you guys have questions that you might ask, think about that right now. And make them good questions. Because if they're bad questions, we're not going to allow you back. No, I'm just kidding. So, but you can ask questions with the microphone, and we'll let you know when it's time to do that. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring up Travis Langley and one and only voice of the Batman, Kevin Conroy.
Disney likes lot of the other studios like separate recording because you get a completely clean tape, and in post-production it's much easier technically. But you don't get that kind of interaction that you get through a radio platform, theatrical event. So Warner Brothers likes to get people moved together. And working with Mark Hamill, various actors over the years, literally hundreds of actors, booking sessions got to be great events. People wanted to come in on that show. Word got around pretty quickly in LA that it was a hot show and that the recording sessions were a lot of fun. And everyone wanted to be a part of it. So the process, it was interesting for me. It's one of that, that old John Lennon line, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. I had just made so many other plans, and I ended up doing this for 21 years.
Did the process of voice acting surprise you?
I think the industry evolved as I was doing it. It had before been much more cartoony, the sounds that were made. They were theatrical, they were exaggerated, they were weird voices. As I was getting into it, they were going to more real voices. They wanted, especially with Batman, they wanted real acting. They didn't want cartoony sounds at all. So the fact that it was going away from that was advantageous for me. The thing that made it tricky was that even though they want real sounds and they want dramatic interaction, you still only have your voice to tell the story. So if you only act as you would on camera, it's too flat. It doesn't help. It doesn't paint the picture. So there's a little goose you've done. But you can't give it enough so that it sounds cartoony or theatrical. So there's a fine line to walk. It was interesting going in these bookings because, as I was saying, it was a period where it was getting very hot to do these. I mean, quite frankly, now, I wouldn't be cast in this role. An actor with my background would be cast in this role because they would go for film stars. The people that do these kind of jobs now are major film stars. Everybody wants to do them. So I was just lucky to get in before that happened. But to watch a lot of these people come in now to the booth who don't have a background in doing voice work and are being brought in because they do have a film name or a television name. Some can do it and some can't. It's not as easy as it looks because it's not just like acting on camera. It's naturalistic acting, but with goose, but with, a little something else.
Now, how long have you done the show before you finally saw an episode?
We were recording for at least 6 months, because that's how long it takes to go to the artist and get painted and come back to do a process. What we do is we record first, and it goes off to the artist, they paint them. Then it comes back, and there's a process called ADR. And ADR is the syncing up of the visual with the audio. And there's always extra, what they call mouth flaps, that the artist has painted in. They'll be acting, and all of a sudden the character will do something flat, and people, why did the artist paint that flat? There's no dialogue there. So they've got to come up with a line to build the flat, because it's already been painted in the cartoon. So there'll be extra mouth flaps to fill. There'll be certain lines that have been changed by the producers who just wanted it for reading. There'll be extra grunts and groans. A lot of the fight sounds are added in ADR, just because it's easier to sync up and you can actually see it. So the ADR is the final process before it goes on air. And so we had recorded 6 months of these things, and then the first ones came back to ADR. And Mark Hamill and I were together. We both were booked in at the same time to come in and do our ADR session. So we're sitting in this sound booth on the Warner Brothers lot. There's this huge screen, massive screen, and no one had seen anything yet. And this full symphony score goes up, the first thing, and then the color comes up, and the images come up, and the first scenes come up, and I look over to Mark, and we're both any clue that this is what we're working on? He said, I had no clue this is what we're doing. We didn't have any idea it was going to be that epic, that beautiful. They literally of money per half hour of animation. Up until that time, Warner Brothers okayed doubling it. So you see it in the richness of the episodes. They had a full symphony doing the score. And dozens of actors in each episode. It was all hand-painted. Now a lot of it's computer-generated animation, but then it was all hand-painted. I mean, they really spent a lot of money on it.
And you got to work with some amazing people over the years doing.
We all know